Hey guys, Karnath here, and today I wanted to go over vulnerable damage, how it contributes to amazing amounts of damage, and kind of why I'm actually worried about the future of what's going to happen to it. And without further ado, I'll just kind of jump right into this. So if you've seen other videos, vulnerable damage is kind of key to doing a ton of damage in all these meta builds. In most of my builds, I choose to ignore this, and all it says here is extra damage granted against vulnerable enemies and has a base value of 20, and you can increase this. To kind of get into how and why it does so much damage, the quick explanation I'll give you is simply just kind of this Reddit post that was here, and it has to do with this right here, this multiplicative bonuses. You have crit damage and you have vulnerable damage. Crit damage kind of is earlier in the damage formula than vulnerable damage, and so vulnerable damage is applied after a lot of things are being calculated. And since it's a multiplicative bonus, it increases your damage a ton. So if I had 50% crit damage on 100 damage, okay, so I crit for 150, but then I had vulnerable damage and said it was 100%. Now it takes that 150 and brings it to 300. So instead of doing 100% to 100, it does 100% to 150. That's kind of just the basic of it. Now, I want to kind of jump over to the most recent patch notes here. And this will kind of bring in more relevancy a little bit later. The recent patch notes, while they did fix a lot of the issues, as you can see, one of the big things they did was balance changes. And if you didn't know, experience was a main point of this as well. These balance changes buffed every single class. So pretty much most of the basic skills got buffed in some way, shape, or form, but a bunch of other skills got increased too. So there's a bunch of them in there. It's kind of tweaks here and there. Some got a bigger upgrade than others, and some got minor upgrades than others. And this is to get them to make it feel that basic skills aren't impactful enough in combat. They want that to go away. They want basic skills to be useful. They have a purpose on your bar. But also, you know, what it kind of shows is that should be that more builds will be more viable. And that kind of is one of the things I want to address in kind of like the best builds that we see. Before that, and if you want to know more about vulnerable damage, this guy, Darth Microtransaction right here, he goes over it really well in this video, the must know damage info 3 stats that massively increase DPS. And he's a very genuine guy, and I would recommend his videos because I like him. But yeah, he will go over it very simply and kind of get to the point on the big numbers and how they work and kind of show it off. Now, back to the meta builds. When we look at these meta builds, there are some things that I would like to note on here. First, I'm just clicking an endgame build right now. Second, they're all going to have a source of vulnerability. Barbarians and druids have an amazing effect on the exploit glyph. If you look at this, when an enemy is damaged by you, they become vulnerable for 3 seconds. And that's just any enemy vulnerable, 100% chance for 3 seconds. 3 seconds is more than enough to go in there, do your whirlwind, they're dead. Because of that amazing modifier that we saw, and how it multiplies the damage. Every one of these top builds is going to have a source of vulnerable damage. For sorcerers, it's not as easy. Frost Nova, that's pretty much your source of vulnerability damage. With Necromancer, I haven't played too much of, but I'm pretty sure most of them are going to involve the bone spells of and how to apply vulnerability there. And they have the same kind of problem that Sorcerer has with the exploit glyph, where it just increases vulnerable damage, doesn't apply the vulnerability buff. And you'll see that in here, you know, Pulverize Druid, guess what? He has the exploit glyph, everything like that. And rogues are in a great place because they can apply vulnerability like no tomorrow. They even have this vulnerable damage, and I had forgotten that they have this 100% vulnerable chance as well on their exploit glyph. So 3 out of the 5 classes have that 100% chance of vulnerable in it. So, and as you can see, popular builds, and now there's other builds. But even so, you see Frost Nova, they're all there. And that kind of brings us back to the point of, you know, vulnerable damage and why I am concerned about it. So if you've noticed, I've done builds where I purposely keep vulnerable damage off of my radar. And if I'm able to do Nightmare Dungeons at level 76 with this lightning build, absolutely no vulnerable damage, that means vulnerable damage is not a necessity in Blizzard's eyes. It is not something that I need to complete the game. It is something that I should never need to be able to complete anything. And if that's the case, vulnerability damage is likely not how Blizzard wants it. This is complete speculation, but as far as I can tell, this is my kind of insights into looking into how is my build doing it. Can I kill all the things in here? Yes, I can. I can do it just fine without getting millions of damage. And that's why I'm worried about vulnerable damage. This, again, speculation. Take this with a grain of salt. We will probably see in the near future vulnerable damage get nerfed. That doesn't mean remove it from your builds completely. It means just be prepared for when that happens. Do not think that vulnerable damage is the end all be all for a while, you know, in all builds. Will this happen soon? I don't think so. So they're working on balancing. They're working on getting the XP right, you know, trying to get, you know, these nightmare dungeons working as they intend to. They're trying to get to season 1, trying to get those things out. But after season 1, I'm sure they're going to look at builds and they're going to be going, okay, how many people are using builds that have these skills? Why do they have these skills? And why is Frost Nova in every sorcerer build or something like that? And they're going to all of a sudden notice this vulnerable damage. Maybe it's more powerful than it needs to be, especially with videos saying Uber Lilith is down in 5 seconds. That's why I'm extremely concerned. So kind of like a PSA, keep your eye out for that. I think it will happen later, but be aware that I feel this will have a potential nerf later on. And in the comments, tell me what you think. If I'm just worrying for no reason, if I'm reading into this way more than it should, but if I'm just, if I am right on and, you know, that I am a crazy theorist right here. But yeah, tell me what you think. And then if you like this video, you know, like and subscribe, and I'll try to bring more content, you know, whether it be builds or something like this, out into this channel. All right, without further ado, all right, I'll see you guys later.